Hello, everybody, and welcome one more time to Apple's Life. Today we have a really nice guest. She's Jo Maras. She's a friend of mine. She's a biologist from Florida Atlantic University, and now she's here with the competition at Lynn University, finishing her master's degree in communications media practice. So we're gonna talk about like the zoos and like how environmental stuff. Since Joe is a biologist, I wanted to bring her over and talk about these topics. It's really interesting. So Joe, I was gonna ask you, like, what did you think about like what happened last week with the gorilla? You know that they killed it, and because of the kid decided to go into the cage. This is like a leak in the security of the zoos, and it was a good decision to kill the gorilla, or they should have used another method for it.
Well, thanks for having me, Andreina. I'm really happy to be here discussing this subject today because it's so important to give people an idea what's actually is going on. So the way I see it is that there were two different headlines that could have happened the next day. One was gorilla dies in the zoo. It is killed because there was a kid inside of its cage, or kid it's killed by a gorilla in the zoo. So when you see those two headlines neck to neck, you can see why the zoo has taken the measurements that it did. They could not take the risk of having a kid be killed by a gorilla. They would have run the risk of being shut down.
And the method of like tranquilizing the gorilla, it wouldn't be like a better decision, or the tranquilizer doesn't take too much time to get the effect.
Well, I am an animals activist, and the last thing I wanted was for that gorilla to die. And as I said, it's the measurements that the zoo um, decided to take were good for the time being. So that was their quick decision. But their protocol should have been different. So they have to have a new protocol put in place. So there are different tranquilizers that could have been given to the gorilla that might have been a quick solution. But again, the protocol in place was not effective. But yes, tranquilizers would have been a good option.
Oh, that's great. We have talked about this before, but I wanted to ask you, like, do you think that it's a trend, like, people, it's one, like, life, want to get in touch with the humans, with the animals, like, the humans want to get in touch, like, instead of, like, seeing through the glass, they want to, like, take them as a pet,
Yes,
like, the
very
wild
true.
animals.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I discuss it like, oh, they're so nice and they look so pretty. You want to pet them like a dog, but sometimes they're really dangerous.
Yes. Well, we live in a very paradoxical relationship with nature. We want to be really close to them, but at a safe distance. So we want to go to the zoo and have the experience of swimming with the dolphin or taking a picture with a koala, but we don't want to have the consequences of being beaten by an animal. You see, so we want to get close, but we don't want to suffer the consequences. So we have pushed nature away from us. And now there has been an increased trend in trying to get nature back into our lives. But I wouldn't say that the best way to do it is getting to an animal's cage. That's not what I'm trying to advocate here. You do want to have nature closer to you, but because for the modern times we have become an urban society, it has increasingly become harder to go back to nature.
Oh, that's wonderful. And another question, like, what do you think about like zoos? They should exist, or they should like be just a place to keep the animals and then put them back in their environmental, like we have seen them in China or other places that they take the animals, they shelter them, and then they place them again in the in their living world. Or it's a way like, because since they have been in touch with humans, they are not be able to survive in the wilderness.
Well, zoos have a job, and sometimes it is not the best thing to have animals in a zoo, and there's a lot of different groups that are against zoological institutions. I am more of in favor of what they call a sanctuary, but the thing with a sanctuary is that there is less security. In a zoo, everything is nice and controlled, you have everything in cells, but in a sanctuary, the animals have more access to their environment and being in contact with other species, with then, if you add the human factor of visitors, increases the danger and there is less security. So that's one thing that zoos get the advantage there. Another thing is that zoos have become an enterprise now, so a lot of it turns to revenue. So it's not just the educational side, which is wonderful. A lot of people would not have been able to see a gorilla in their lifetime if it wasn't in a zoo. But this aspect of the revenue actually decreases the value of the zoo itself, which is educational and research and all the wonderful things that these animals can actually bring to people's lives.
And when
Did I answer your question?
yeah, but like the other part was like when an animal is placed in one of these zoos, they can get into the wild. They can be placed again into the wild, or they can not survive.
Yes. So one of the roles of zoos is actually taking in animals that have been traumatized or that have had a struggling life, or even animals that are so close to extinction that they end up being close to the last ones that actually exist in the world. So zoos do a wonderful job doing this role in our society today. But we tend to think of animals as stupid. Like we think, oh no, it's been domesticated, it's never going to be able to survive in the wild. And we have seen that happen. We have seen animals that are taken back into the wild and cannot readapt. But we have also seen a lot of animals that have been able to be reintroduced into their environment and have had a success in surviving, which is what every living thing in the world is going for. But anyways, when animals cannot move on, they cannot be reintroduced, they have had an injury, zoos actually do keep them and don't try to train them to be reintroduced into the wild. But there is the possibility, and the training part is what actually it's the most effective. If animals are trained to go back and live in the environment again, a lot of them have a good success rate in surviving.
Oh, that's great. Interesting. And what do you think about like when it's like we talk about animal trafficking? I know that sometimes the zoos play a really good role in it because they shelter these animals that have been trafficked and that people have taken them from their own environmentals, like the birds. So usually it's like a monkey or another kind of exotic animal that you don't see around, but they like them, and they kidnap them to sell their skin, their fur, and other stuff. Do you think that actually zoos help to stop animal control?
Well, zoos are not directly involved in animal trafficking, and they're not directly involved in stopping animal trafficking. So that's a job from the different federal polices, and there has been several cases of people that have been arrested bringing in or taking away animals that are close to the brink of extinction or that are protected. They're either the emblem of a certain country, or they have an exotic appeal, and people even put them in their underwear. There has been a case of a rare hummingbird that the person did little containers and placed it inside of its underwear, but it got caught. Bags, lots of birds have been trafficked inside of bags, and the bags just get tossed around in the airports, and it's it is a growing problem, but awareness is key. And zoos do try to bring awareness to not buy exotic animals without a permit. That there are several different things. Um, but the matter of the fact is that when there is an animal that has been trafficked and has been sold, most people don't know of what they're capable of. So let's say a monkey, a rare species of monkey has been trafficked to New York, and but the person doesn't know what's capable of after it reaches maturity. So then it gets strong or violent, and a lot of the times people either abandon the animal or they take it to a zoo, and the zoo usually keeps that animal and takes care of it.
Wow, that's really interesting. And one last question: what, like, as a humans, like, as a normal person, how do you think we should make people aware of, like, not, not to interrupt the shelters of the animals, like, for
Mm-hmm.
example, try to not bother them in the zoos, or like to try to avoid this animal trafficking that is really terrible for the species and only ends up with the extinction of them,
Mm-hmm.
and like it causes a whole damage for the environment.
Awareness, awareness, awareness. Like the more you're aware of the things that are around you, the more you know, the better you understand, and the less you're gonna do to cause harm. Knowing it's a privilege, and when you know, you should tell others. So if you are aware of some animal trafficking, don't go and buy that animal. Actually, um, talk to the authorities and have those animals taken away from the people that have trafficked it into your country or your area. Another thing that's very important, when you are in a zoo, understand that those animals, they're not there for your entertainment. So don't bang on the cages. Don't try to interfere with their behavior. Just go there and observe. That's another thing that we have got away from. We've stopped to observe. We don't observe nature anymore. We walk around like the world is ours, and then everything should bow to us, but we forget that there are other things there that need to have.
Yeah, that need to be told, and then people needs to be aware.
People need to be aware, exactly. But the my point is that this observation needs to be continuous. It's not just when you go to the zoo. And if you don't do go to the zoo, try to read. Don't just go around. Read the little, the little boring things that they have. They're actually really valuable.
They're really nice. They tell you what the species is,
Mm-hmm.
where
Where
it's
it's
come from,
from. Yeah.
and how many years have. Like sometimes the animals they play, the people in the zoo, they put them a name, just
Mm-hmm.
like to be, because they we try to humanize them too,
Mm-hmm.
like you do with a dog or with a cat, that you try them as a part of your family.
Mm-hmm.
That's sometimes what the zoos does, like the animals are their family.
Yeah, actually, animals that live in zoos have a really strong connection with their caretakers, and this connection, it's actually a lot of zoos are afraid of changing animals' locations, which happens often for when they're trying to reprocreate. So you have a zoo send one animal from one place to another place, and then they meet, making babies. But they get so attached to their caretakers because a lot of the times it's one animal in one cage, and the only interaction they actually have is with that person. So
So now they do like the in vitro procreation, right, for some animals.
yeah, but I I don't know
Sometimes.
if I agree with the in vitro, because I mean, can you imagine you are brought up in a cell with no social interaction, all of a sudden you're pregnant, you've never seen another female, or you've never seen another
Species.
one of your species. You're the only one that you know that exists, and then all of a sudden there is a little one of you, and you have never observed caretaking for young, and even in the wild this happens. If you have and it has been very well documented, especially in elephant herds, when females, they don't, if they don't have the exposure of observing their grandmothers or mothers actually having baby elephants and caretaking of it, a lot of the time they reject because they do not understand. So like I I have a different perspective on it.
Yeah, everybody has a perspective. Well, Joe, thank you very much for coming
Thanks,
today.
Andreina.
It was a really interesting conversation. Remember, take care of the environment. Don't feed the animals while you go to the zoo. Zoos, please try to keep up your security and put it a little bit stronger. And people, let's be aware, let's not kill the animals, or let's stop trafficking. And they're creatures like us, and they have life like us, and they are family. So if you keep them, you take them away from their houses, they're gonna die. And what, like the revenue, yeah, you can get afford, but you kill a whole species. So thank you very much for coming today, and just be aware. And just thank you very much for coming
Thanks,
again.
Andreina.
See you next time.